Welcome everybody to this month's edition of the Spark Session. I'm very excited today to have Derek McGill from Discover Praxis. Is it Discover Praxis or Praxis?
It's Praxis, but the website is Discover
Discover.
Praxis.
I always call it Praxis, but then I've wondered that. So
Yeah.
they have been killing it on their digital marketing, and I've been watching it for quite a long time. Was very excited when Derek decided to join us. Partially because when you go to his personal website, here's what it says. Hi, I'm Derek. I teach people how to drop out of college, get an education, and build a career without a degree. I mean, who could not love somebody who wants to help people that much? So we're going to dive right in. But first, I want to remind everybody our next Spark session is another Ask the Expert session. I think we might have a digital intellectual property lawyer on that one, as well as myself. And I'm not sure who the other person will be. It'll be based on questions that y'all send in. If you have a question for Ask the Expert, please email it to Nicole, Nicole, @sparkfreedom.org. And with that, Derek, tell us who you are and how you ended up at Praxis.
Cool. Well, I am 23 years old. I'm a college dropout, as you can probably imagine. I went to the University of Michigan, and I dropped out about my sophomore year and kind of quickly got involved in marketing, just sort of honestly fell into it, sort of as a result of watching what other people were doing and just getting some odd jobs here and there. I did some photography, did some other things, and sort of eventually kind of transitioned into some freelance marketing that I was doing that eventually sort of grew into a company. And I started doing marketing for clients all around the country. I worked with places like Colliers International, which is one of the largest commercial real estate companies in the country. I worked with firearms companies. I worked with clothing manufacturers, sports apparel, craft brew bars. And I had heard about Praxis before it was actually founded. I had actually met the CEO, Isaac Morehouse, and Praxis got founded. I kind of saw what it was doing. And eventually I reached out to them and offered to do some free work for them. They became a client of mine because they weren't hiring. They weren't really paying anybody. I started doing some marketing work for them. And eventually they hired me on full time as their director of marketing. So that's where I am at today.
Sounds like you're following what you preach to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I write about in my blog, a lot of the curriculum materials in Praxis now have been sort of based off of some of the stuff that I've been able to do, and some of the lessons that I've learned coming out of school without prior experience, without a degree. And I really kind of had to figure out, how do I make myself stand out in the job process? How do I build a signal that says a lot more than a college degree? And I was fortunate to be able to do that in most cases.
Excellent. Okay, so on to the first meaty question. What are the three most important things for people to take into consideration when they're planning their digital strategy?
That's a good question. Okay. Well, let me think. I mean, specifically, I would say focus on sales first. A lot of people get so wrapped up in marketing that they never really get to the crux of actually how to sell their customer on the product. And so they try all these different things. They're doing content development and Facebook ads and all sorts of other stuff. When I find it more valuable, just get in front of a customer, tell them about your product, and try to sell them on it in real time. You'll learn a lot more about their questions. You'll learn a lot more about yourself. You'll become a more dynamic, evangelist of your product. You'll be able to learn how to talk about it. What are the key selling points? And chances are it's actually much different than you think it is. So I would say Praxis's kind of digital strategy didn't really take off until I actually started doing sales work. So that's probably number one. It would also make you a better writer. It will actually help you write marketing copy, digital marketing copy much more effectively if you do sales. Number two would be develop a marketing funnel and a customer journey and workflow up front before you try to start. Even if you're totally wrong, it's just going to put you in the right mindset, and it's going to give you a framework with which to operate under. And now you have something to go off of and to base all of your individual actions off of. Again, I find most people don't really think about that. Those are the two most important things I would say. I mean, beyond that, it'd be more general stuff, but those are the things that I find most people neglect, and that can have huge returns.
I like the term customer journey. Can you sit on that what do you mean by a customer journey?
Yeah, so it's just a way of understanding the life cycle of your customer from the moment they hear about you to the moment they actually buy your product to beyond that. And when I first got involved with Praxis, we had none of that. And it was very unclear to understand, like, okay, where are customers in the pipeline? You know, why are people applying after 3 or 6 months to the program versus applying in 1 month? What is it about that? What's that trigger that eventually gets them to apply? So we started asking customers, but more importantly, we just mapped it out ourselves to kind of think about it. Like, in our ideal world, what is the first touch that a customer has in Praxis? What's the second touch? What does it look like? And we started that. Once we did that, we realized, wow, there's actually a lot of gaping holes in this process. Here's how we can plug one of these holes. Here's how we can plug one of these holes. We just didn't have that before. And, you know, the initial one that we came up with was a bit wrong, but it just put us into the right mindset. It's just going to train your mind to start thinking like that and give you, again, kind of an operating framework to use. And that was a tremendously helpful.
Great. Okay, so I have a marketing crush on your website. I have to admit it. I don't know when you changed it. It became ultra simplified sometime in the last 12 months. How did you come up with the concept for that? Because I remember when I saw it, and we totally copied it, by the way, immediately, where I was like, I know exactly what they're doing, and I'm just going to,
so I'll give you
by ripping them off.
I'll give you some numbers too, because it's funny. Since we launched that in July, this was the kind of a pet project of mine for a long time. I was working on it in secret for a long time. I knew it was going to be very controversial. And we launched it in July, and we've had I guess it's 4 months in July now. It's 4 or 5 months in July, 4 months. Anyway, we've had 4 months of record-breaking numbers back to back to back to back, and it's been incredible. And we really haven't changed our digital strategy one bit beyond that. We haven't done any really additional ads, haven't really spent any new money. The philosophy that I was kind of operating under was a couple of different things. Number one, you hit up right on the head. It was simplicity. I realized the old website, like oftentimes what we want to do is we want to give all the customers tons of information, right? And this goes back to sales. I started doing a lot of sales work and actually talking to customers. And I realized that most of the time when they request this information, they don't actually want it. Like when you give it to them, it won't help them make the decision. All they want is the emotional feeling of certainty and security that they think that will give them. So it's your responsibility now to deliver that emotional security. I also realized that the number one thing we could do with people is get on a phone call with them and actually talk to them about Praxis. The old website was not set up for that. There were way too many options. People would click here, 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 and here, and here. They'd spend all day reading this. And I knew that, based off of understanding our customer journey, I knew that it was taking people 3 to 6 months to apply. So it was like, my job was to figure out how can we decrease this? How can we speed this process up? And the things we did were, remove basically any action they could possibly take on the website besides download a program guide, schedule a call, or apply, and besides, you could read the blog, but besides that, there's nothing. There's no team page, there's no graduates, there's no real mission statement or any of that stuff that we would have had on the old site that people think you need to have and that people are going to care about. All we want is to provide just enough curiosity in the customer in order to reach out and give us their information. And our leads, they like quintupled or whatever the next one up is overnight, pretty much, once we launched that site. It was absolutely incredible. One of the most important things we did, though, was on the old site, we had a single application, which was very long. I decided to divide the application in 2 separate steps. The first step would just be basically name, email, phone number. Now we capture your information. We know you're interested in the application. Second step would be the full application, because I realized based off talking with customers, and again, based off understanding that sort of customer journey, that people would literally sit on applications for like 3 months. They'd have it almost all filled out and they just sit there and wait, basically. This way I know they've expressed interest in the application. Now I can reach out to schedule a call with them. And we've taken our sales cycle down to like a month now from 6 months. We just, 4 months of timing. So it's been pretty incredible.
Oh, that's a pretty good result from a simplified website. I know that, interestingly enough, some of our feedback has been you're not saying enough about what you do. And I still want to take more stuff off the website. So we have our own internal journey at Spark Freedom about how that's going.
Yeah, we started with a principle, really, like we are not going to add something unless we can absolutely prove that we'll add value to our sales cycle. That's it. The rest of it, like like you almost have to have a filter because we grow up in this world, like a very customer centric world, and like our goal
Yeah.
is to deliver value to the customers. It doesn't mean we need to give them all the information up front, and that doesn't mean that the best thing to do and the best way to deliver value is to cave to every little opinion that they have, because we've been told the same thing. Oh, your website's too simple, blah 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 blah. But we know based off the numbers, actually our numbers have gone completely through the roof since we simplified it, and we know that in general customer feedback is not always the most valuable thing to base your assumptions off of.
Yeah. Okay, so quick question about customer. Are you a nonprofit or for profit?
No, no, we are a for-profit
Okay.
company.
Okay, so your customers are your customers, or do you have two customer pools?
Well, our customers are our customers. We're developing sort of customer relationships with our business partners, but right now our
Mhm.
business partners are free. But we are
Mhm.
essentially providing a product to our business partners. One of the reasons they love us is that we're sending them some of the best young people from all around the country. We're removing the vetting process. We're taking that off their hands. We're removing the recruiting process. We're taking that off their hands, and we're actually training them into being successful, dynamic, entrepreneurial employees. So there may be a time in the future where we actually start charging our business partners and they'll become a customer of ours as well. Right now,
Mhm.
the primary customer is our participants.
Okay, so you simplified business model as well has helped with your move forward, it sounds like. Okay,
Yeah.
so what would you say is the core thing that Praxis must communicate in every interaction in order to be successful in your sales cycle? Is there a core concept that's always there?
Um, the core, yeah. It used to be, I'm trying to think the core best way to frame this, because we have a couple different like messages that we give, but the main one is sort of just the value creation mindset and the idea of not waiting for permission to get started, not waiting
Mhm.
to be an expert to get started. That's just something a lot of young people haven't heard before, and it's something we have to continually repeat throughout the process. I will say though, this is kind of a broader messaging thing. You'll notice on the website, the first thing it says is apprentice at a startup. Like before that, we were very kind of nebulous and flowery with our language. You know, it was all about becoming an entrepreneur and some kind of like, you know, why entrepreneurs change the world and all this kind of like more philosophical stuff. I've found that to the extent to which we've concretized the product and concretized the value proposition and say you're getting X, Y, and Z, the extent
Mhm.
to which we've also improved dramatically as well. So our efforts this year have been to increasingly concretize exactly what Praxis is providing, even though it is not a physical product. The extent to which we can make it feel like a physical product is the extent to which we've been successful.
Excellent. And so I've noticed in the last year, Isaac wrote a book. Your podcasts have had very consistent themes. You've released interesting blog posts. I've been reading your blog posts, and those things all complement one another. And in fact, I looked at your personal website, which Praxis does not control, and it supports what you're doing at Praxis. So they all complement one another. How did you
Yeah.
manage to coordinate that with what I imagine are some rather strong personalities on the staff at Praxis?
You know, we picked the best people. I think we picked the right people for the jobs, and we picked people who we knew would live and breathe Praxis, who didn't want a job, basically, who basically wanted Praxis to take over the world. We picked that kind of group of people who were willing to build their life into Praxis and build Praxis into their life. And so I was on board from the beginning. I was ready to go. I was like, this is, if I'm going to do this, I am living and breathing Praxis. I'm not really having a work life separation. It's one and the same thing. My interests align completely with Praxis's mission. So it's going to be a very good overlap. And so, yeah, anything personally that I do, I find a lot of ways to tie that back to Praxis. And I would actually say I've had a significant number of participants come from, you know, Quora posts that I've written, come from podcast episodes that I've gone on, and come from my personal blog. I actually did a scholarship last year on my personal blog where we got, I think, 4 participants, which was crazy. I mean, it was like, you know, over $50,000 in revenue directly from, you know, a blog offering that I made from my personal audience. So the whole Praxis team is on board with that. Obviously, Isaac does that, but it just comes
Mhm.
back to the selection process of who you choose to come work for you. We're very, very, you know, diligent about what kind of people we want working for us. And I would say every person who's come to work for Praxis has essentially created their own job. So we didn't actually go out and hire them. We didn't even put out an ad. They came to Praxis like I did and said, I have some ideas for how I can make this better. I want to do this for you for free. And I don't care, you know, how long it takes. I will make this work for you. And that's kind of how it's gotten started. And so when you hire people like that, you get the best.
That makes sense. Okay, next topic. Actually, before I go on to the next topic, for the participants or the viewers of this Spark session, if you want to ask a question towards the end, you can start entering them now. There is a button in the upper left of your screen. I believe it's on the bottom of mine, but upper left of yours. And it says Q&A. Just feel free to drop your questions in there. And when we move on to the open question portion of the Spark session, I'll be filtering through those. Okay, back to regular programming, measurement. Measurement is something I have probably spent more hours in conferences hearing people arguing about than any other topic. So we all worry about it. And I imagine as you measure your results, you're not just looking at how many people visit the website or how many emails are on your email list. What are you doing to properly or very concretely link how you measure success in the digital strategy with what you're wanting to accomplish for Praxis?
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten much better in the last couple months, really since launching the website again, at tracking this kind of stuff. All of it comes back to captured leads and number of phone calls. I mean, that's really it. And a big effort this year actually was to reduce the number of things we were measuring, and to stop using what I call vanity metrics. Metrics where it's like, oh, I got this many shares on Facebook. It's like, well, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. And this is something that a lot of people get wrapped up on. A lot of marketers come back and they're like, oh, well, our Facebook post reached this many people, or we got, a ton of views on this one video. It's like, yeah, but views, as you know, you get a view for 3 seconds worth of watching. And so it's not necessarily a meaningful number. We cut all of that stuff, and I'm actually biased against measurement. At the same time, I don't spend money unless I know I'm going to get a return, but I'm also biased against getting overwhelmed with data and losing the bigger picture. So again, Praxis is very sales focused. It's very personal focused. And our whole digital strategy is designed to get people into an in-person interaction. So really it's number of leads, calls scheduled based off those leads, and basically the percentages of those kind of things. And we know kind of predictably how many leads we need in order to get X number of apps per month.
Excellent. So if you were going to describe in a nutshell what the digital strategy at Praxis is, if you're allowed to share that with us, how would you describe your digital strategy?
Radical openness is part of it. I mean, you touched on that, how the team is very open personally and things like that. That's a big part of it. We make ourselves as public as possible about what we're doing. I write about all the tools we're using. To the extent that I can, I share everything. We have public interactions. People all know us. And that's a big core part of our strategy. And it wasn't deliberate when we got started, but once we kind of figured it out, this is what works, we started, to definitely make that a core part of our strategy. The rest of it is, like I said, it's heavily sales focused. I mean, the goal of the digital strategy is just to reinforce the sales efforts. That's it. It's to get people into a personal phone call with us and get them to talk to us and get them to give us some kind of information that we can go off of. And then to be heavily content heavy, to be consistently creating content. We have a small team, but I would say for the size of our team, we produce more content than just about any company that I know. I mean, both on the personal end and on the actual Praxis branded. And, basically every team member has written a book of some sorts. Every team member has a personal blog. Every team member writes on the Praxis blog. Every team member is doing podcasts and talks all around the country all the time. That's been a huge part of our strategy and a huge part of our growth, just being constantly in front of people. And it actually makes us seem bigger than we are.
It's always good to seem bigger than you are, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to guess I know the answer to this question, but we'll ask it anyway. Do you think an organization's digital strategy is a standalone thing? Why or why not?
No, it should be tied to everything else. I don't really like to make a distinction even between sales and marketing. I really like to kind of blend them together, make them the same thing. Even product development. I mean, I include them all under the same tent now. So I would say if your digital efforts are not tied to the broader picture, you're probably not going to have the same success. Like when we were trying to separate in-person marketing with what we were doing digitally, which we used to do, we used to have actually, Cameron would do the event marketing and I would do the digital marketing. I don't know, we just didn't have the same success rate. Now, we've never actually gone into why we had that. and why that happened. But once we integrated them and once we developed kind of a coherent strategy, it just worked much more effectively. So I would say, yeah, blend product development, blend sales and marketing all into the same time.
So, and you're touching on something that we see a lot of in the nonprofit freedom movement, which is the digital director is separate from the communications director, who's separate from the marketing person. And I'm wondering, do you have any advice for the digital director or communications director or marketing director who is having trouble getting buy-in from the rest of their organization's team for their plans? What advice do you, because it's not just a digital thing, but there is this resistance sometimes. Sometimes there's not, but sometimes there is.
I mean, I'll tell it personally what I did kind of with the Praxis website is I built it privately because I knew it was going to be controversial. And I started to unveil it to them and showed them, look, this is what it's going to look like. This is the vision. And you're going to have to change the product in order to fit with this vision. And once they saw it, it was much more clear of like, oh, we actually want to do this. We will make some product changes. We'll do some this and this and this. And, we have some ideas that we can contribute to this as well. So I would say the general operating philosophy is show, not tell, and don't ask for permission. Just prove it in the world. So that's most of the projects that I've worked on that have been successful or that have been controversial. I just worked on and gave it to them and then said, look, this is it. Now you can see it, versus coming and trying to pitch yourself or make an argument. I find that nonprofit spaces in particular, someone has an idea, they all want to have a big board meeting and they want to do write-ups and talk about it and debate it. And everybody's got their individual egos wrapped up in it and stuff like that. Ignore all of that crap. And if you have an idea, just go do it yourself and prove to them that it's valuable.
Okay, so you've just scared all the viewers on the Spark session with that advice.
Cool.
But that's okay. That's why we're having you on today. Okay, so what will we see next from you? I mean, as I said, you've been killing it digitally. Do you have any new things in the hopper that you could talk about from a communications and marketing standpoint?
The next stage for us, we've been building out a new system. So when we got started in July with the kind of a new model and stuff like that, I built out a sales and marketing funnel that was, to a good extent automated. We realized pretty quickly that we outgrew that. So right now we're onboarding HubSpot, we're onboarding Salesforce and doing a big integration process with that. And that's been a big challenge, but it's been kind of fun to see. And it's going to just make a lot of the data management and the lead management much more easy. We've onboarded a new sales rep actually to start taking calls as well because it's just become overwhelming. And really, I mean, the big focus for us now is lead generation. We have a system, we know how many leads we need basically to get X number of applicants and translate that into X number of participants. But we need more leads and we need more people coming to the site. We need more people hearing about us. So we're doing, more and more content. We're looking at different kinds of lead channels. We actually had our biggest lead win like ever. And that was a video that a participant had made where he talked about why he was doing Praxis. Mm-hmm. We actually partnered with the Libertarian Homeschooler to share that video on their page. And I mean, it just absolutely blew up social shares, which again, we don't really care about. But what it did is it blew up inbound leads, it blew up our application numbers, and it blew up the number of sales calls that were being scheduled. So it's tremendously valuable. And we've sort of seen that now as a predictable way to drive more interest and drive more exposure and traffic. We've also narrowed down our target audience a bit right now. We're really trying to just dominate the libertarian scene as well as the homeschool scene. We have some other demographics, but we found those are the ones that can be consistently reached out to. And those are the ones we can, expect some pretty significant growth from, particularly among the homeschool crowd. So those are the biggest areas, but we're going to be doing a lot of heavy content blitz. I wrote an ebook today, actually, this morning. Got up at 5:45, spent 5 hours and wrote about, 6,000 words. And we're going to release that soon. And we're going to be doing a lot more of that stuff as well. Just helping to further explain the product. And then from a marketing perspective too, we're going to be developing the product more. We're actually going to be working to up the production value of the product, mm-hmm. up our content level, because all of that stuff's going to help on the back end. It's going to help our marketing.
Excellent. Okay, so let's sum it up. What things should we all consider to increase our success in digital marketing, in your opinion? I'm not going to give you a number because last time I gave you 3 and you're like, there's only 2, Nicole.
Yeah, sorry about that. I mean, there's probably other ones. I really do think taking a sales heavy approach is the number one thing you can do. Get out and talk to people and try to sell them individually on your product first. And it's going to give you an operating framework and a kind of a mindset to actually take it back to your digital strategy. Now you'll know what kind of ads are going to convert better. Now you'll know where your audience exists. Now you'll know what the concerns of your customers are. Not all products lend themselves to that, but a lot of them do. And so jump on a phone call and try to sell 50, 60, 100 people on your product, and you'll be way surprised by how effective it is taking those same principles over to your digital presence.
Excellent. That's very good
Oh,
advice.
and one more thing. Seriously, like digital marketers, you need to be involved with the development of the product. I mean, that's another really core part of it. Oftentimes we get kind of siloed and compartmentalized, and our goal is just to take an existing product and market it online. You need to actually get your hands into the product so you can, number one, understand it, but more importantly, adapt the product to your marketing goals. Don't just try to fit marketing around a specific product. Go in and see, how can I build the marketing into the product? How can I make the product more marketable? And that's been probably the number one or two most important thing we did in the last couple months was just reevaluate what the product was actually going to look like.
Yeah, I think as we look through this year's Trendsetter Award applicants, the ones who the judges liked the most were ones who had changed the approach where policy and communications were linked and balanced, so that they were involved early. I mean, when we explored the journey they took, it was definitely a balanced team approach. So that's great advice. Okay, I have some questions from viewers.
Cool.
Again, if you have a question, there's a Q&A button. Just tap on it and type your question in. One of these is the one that comes up every time we do a digital marketing, and you're going to laugh when you hear it, but we'll go for it. So what are the key digital tools an organization should use?
Yeah, okay, so I've actually listed these on my blog post, the ones that are on my personal blog, DerekMcGill.com. You can just scroll down. I think it's on the second page, some of the marketing tools that Praxis uses. This is obviously, I guess it's biased towards which kind of product you're selling. I'm someone who tries not get wrapped up in tools. I'm someone who tries to do things until I absolutely need a tool, because I find oftentimes, tools are sort of an excuse from actually doing the work. And we spend a lot of time implementing new tools and thinking these are going to radically change our lives. I've never had a tool in my life radically change my life. Never, besides maybe, one, which I'll mention. So that one is called SumoMe, which is a full host of analytics tools and lead capture tools, which you can implement on e-commerce websites, on nonprofits, policy websites. It's on Praxis, and that's been one of the most valuable things we do. So it's basically a very simple pop-up tool, as well as like Google Analytics and a lot of other cool stuff that you can use to start capturing leads. That's been hugely, hugely valuable. Other ones that Praxis uses, we used MailChimp for a long time, which I think is fantastic, and is actually, people think it's, I think, more simple than it actually is. There's a lot of really amazing things you can do with it if you actually get down and dirty with it. But now we're switching things over to HubSpot and Salesforce. Beyond that, I mean, we use WordPress. The reason I use WordPress is because it's highly documentable, rather than trying to build a custom site with a developer, which is oftentimes, especially when you got a big nonprofit budget, it's like, let's just go out and build a huge site and spend a ton of money. I realized, like, if I just built the site myself, I would know the code behind it. I would understand how the code was written. Now I could make very lightweight edits, and I could also Google a question whenever I had it. So WordPress is the other one that we use. Beyond that, I mean, we really don't use a lot. We use Google Work apps just for management of data, and Calendly for scheduling calls, which is great. And that's really it. I use Evernote for my writing, my content writing. So if you are a content marketer, I find writing in Evernote's better, because I get it out of the browser and I stop worrying about how the content looks on the page and just what I'm actually saying. So those would be it. But I have a full list of tools that Praxis uses on my personal website.
Yeah, do you want to shoot me the link to that, and we'll include it in the show notes just so they can go check it out on your site. No reason to retype those. Eric Tubbs has a question that he didn't finish. So Eric, I have it ended mid-sentence. If you can retype that, please, we'll fit it in next. Before we take Eric's question, I have, what does it take to become best in class digital?
It depends. It depends what your goal is, but I would say Again, I mean, it goes back to sales. I mean, get out of the digital framework and talk to people. I mean, really, and force yourself to talk about your product. Even if you're not doing sales directly, make it a habit throughout your day to talk about your company and the product that you're selling. Tell everybody about it and let them hit you with the hardest questions you can possibly have to answer. So, like with me, I mean, even this opportunity right here is something where getting to talk about what Praxis does is literally going to help make me a better marketer. And so, like, stop getting siloed in the digital world and just reading blogs all the time and stuff like that. Go out, talk to people, develop a mindset and an elevator pitch and a language with which to discuss your product, and you'll start to see the holes in it, and you'll start to see what are the principles you can take back to digital marketing. I will say, one of the other things I did to kind of learn marketing and become better at it was I cut out all books. I stopped reading. I cut out all blogs. I cut out all podcasts. This is kind of a controversial thing, but what I did instead was when I needed like an email campaign, for example, to work on, I went straight to the people who were doing it best. So, if I needed to launch a course, for example, I went over to Ramit Sethi. This is actually what we did for the Praxis Teen Entrepreneurship course that we did, and we did like, I don't know, $10,000 to $15,000 in sales in the weekend, and not a lot. It was kind of a minor product, but I went in and I actually saw like, okay, here are the 5 emails that Ramit is using for his Zero to Launch course. Here's how he's sending them. And here's the triggers and delays, and here's the kind of language he uses. And then I took that stuff and rewrote it for Praxis. And I've done that time and time again for other things. So whenever I have, a Facebook campaign that I want to do or something else that I want to do digitally, I go like follow a ton of different pages and I actually see what are the things that they're doing successfully and how can I take these principles back to my own work. You're going to speed up your learning process dramatically, and you're going to have much more effective digital presence by doing that.
Yeah, and what's working right now is not what worked 6 months ago. So that's actually a great set of advice, especially, I mean, like Facebook has radically changed this year.
Oh, yeah.
And it will again next year, I'm sure. Okay, Eric retyped his question. Thank you so much. Do you target any of your marketing efforts directly at parents of potential customers?
Homeschoolers a bit, yeah. That's been hugely valuable. It depends. I mean, again, I don't want to give like general advice because targeting parents can be very valuable. For Praxis, our goal is to include the parents to the extent that's possible, but it's also to make sure that the participant wants to do it themselves and they're not being pushed by their parents, because the product is very challenging. The apprenticeship is very hard. And we find that the kids who have a lot of parental pressure to do the program end up not doing well. And then also we find that there's a lot of parental pushback as well. We're offering a product that is sort of controversial. We have a lot of parents who are like, not my kid. And parents can often be a gatekeeper as well. So it really depends. With the homeschool parents, we have a lot more success. I mean, we will target pages that we know they'll be on. And we have actually written some blog posts specifically for parents of homeschoolers that did tremendously well. We did one on why homeschooling is like entrepreneurship, which the parents just absolutely loved. And we knew they would love it based off of our conversations with them. But most of our stuff is done directly to participants.
That's funny that you bring up that resistance. Of course, when I've been ramping up to this and talking about what the Spark session would be with people, I do talk to a lot of parents, and I explained what Praxis does. And it's that point where they stop making eye contact with you because you just challenge the collegiate. I mean, and I have a college degree. I'm very glad I got it. I got it before it cost a lot of money, though. And I have friends who have $80,000 in debt and are getting paid less than people without college degrees at their companies. So
exactly,
so when I talk about it, they just get that. They get scared, and it's just pretty interesting to watch. So go talk to people. Also learn how to read the body language. If they can't make eye contact with you, they don't like a word you're saying. They just want to be polite.
Yeah, and I will say, kind of in light of that point too, like even if it's not parents, like targeting people who know your customers can be hugely valuable. So we have done a number of times where we've targeted audiences that like indirectly know our customers, and referrals and stuff like that are tremendously valuable for Praxis, and so we do that regularly.
Great. Okay, we have another question, and it's related to when you talked about how your digital strategy is content heavy. The question is, what do you mean by that? And is it generalized content or specialized?
It's a mix of stuff. I mean, it's all different kinds of content mediums on all different kinds of platforms. We're writing on Quora, we're writing on Facebook, we're doing videos, we're doing podcasts, we're doing in-person talks, we're doing webinars. Some of it's, general. A lot of it's even just specialized directly for, one person we're doing a session with. A lot of it's just documenting our processes as well. So when I'm working on a video, you'll often see me sharing screenshots of the editing process, for example, and actually hyping up the whole release. And that's something that I think Praxis is kind of uniquely good at among a lot of the companies is, again, radical openness, sharing what's going on at the company on a day-to-day basis, sharing what we're working on, what we're planning to do, what the work process is like, what our internal conversations are like. And those things actually have a lot of indirect marketing appeal. And I've sort of created a cult following around Praxis and around the people at Praxis.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure quite what he means by the difference between general and specialized. The content's all around what's in our curriculum, though, and what the Praxis philosophy is, if that helps to clarify it a bit. We're very, very open about it, and a lot of our content is stuff that we've actually included in the curriculum as well.
Great. Okay, that was the last question, Derek. And thank you so much for being on the show. I liked your answer to the first question, which was what were the top 3 most important things to consider, and you gave us 2. And that was to learn how to do sales first, and then secondly, build your marketing funnel out all the way to see how people go on a customer journey from the first time they interact with you through closing the deal. And part of why I like that is it is a big integrated approach. It's not just for digital. Everybody at the company should be involved in knowing what that looks like. So it's a new way to think about digital rather than just promoting this one event or promoting that paper that this came out. It's all working together.
I'll add one more just real quickly. One that I found very valuable, and you can see this on the Praxis site now, is answering FAQs. And so every week or so, I'll just write an FAQ. It's been huge for understanding the marketer language, because I find what ends up happening with marketers, and it happens with me all the time, is you have this sort of nebulous idea and you're like, oh my God, this is an amazing idea, but it lacks a lot of substance and you haven't really thought it through about what it's actually going to look like on paper. And so whether you're doing sales work or whether you're doing FAQs, or whether you're mapping it out physically on a whiteboard about what your sales cycle is like, force yourself to do this kind of activities, because more often than not, you're going to start to be like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm talking about. I need to figure it out. That's what happens to me all the time, the time.
Yep, that's absolutely true. Great. Well, thank you. Looking forward to seeing the next 12 months at Praxis. And
it's going to be really exciting.
If people here want to get involved to help Praxis, what do they do?
Well, you can reach out to me at derekmagill.com. It's probably the best way. DEREKMAGILL.com. My email is derek@discoverpraxis.com. Feel free to shoot me an email. We can talk about marketing. We can talk about Praxis. We can talk about, any other things you guys want.
Great. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of the week.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and thank you.
Bye.